Sure. Well, I was raised in a very loving Christian home, and I'm very, grateful for that initial orientation. Getting that push in the right direction is tremendously helpful. And so I was raised an evangelical Protestant, went to church.
Any particular tradition or just?
It was one of the non-denominational sorts of, born-again type things. And again, I'm very appreciative of that initial thrust in that direction. But as many people do, later on you grow up, in high school and college, I fell away from the faith. I quit practicing, I quit going, not only because of moral, sinful reasons, although that's part of the story, but principally, I think, Marcus, because of intellectual reasons. I didn't think that Christianity was true. No one had ever given me any good reasons to think that Christianity was true, and I thought, well, why do I have to make all these, moral sacrifices and do all this stuff if I'm not even sure that it's true? You see, it just didn't seem to make sense to me. So I just thought, well, it's kind of like an adult version of Santa Claus. It's nice, makes you feel good, but I'm not going to go out of my way to act in this way if there aren't any good reasons. So I fell away from the faith for that reason, as many people do.
There was I remember a book long ago. It was a Protestant book. It's actually a very fine book by an author named Paul Little, known Know Why You Believe. And I think he was addressing the same issue, that you could be brought up in a really strong evangelical home. People love Jesus Christ, love the scriptures, pray. But as a young person, you just brought up into the hoops, and you don't always know, why are we doing these things? Is that what it was? So in the end, you didn't have any arguments. Yeah, and that's
what happened to me.
Oh, and the moral challenge, all of a sudden there they are, and people are asking, well, why not? And if all they say is, well, I ain't supposed to, then they can't go any deeper than that. And I'm thinking also, you weren't brought up Catholic, but imagine young Catholic people, Catholic children, transubstantiation.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big word. And when someone says, wait a second here, that's just a piece of bread, and that's just wine, taste it. That's, well, it's transubstantiation. Well, what does that mean? Well, that word has a huge history.
Yes.
And if you don't know how it works or what it means, like you said, they can't explain why, so they can be gone, which happened to you.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. So I fell away from the faith and just went on to do other things. I myself, really got into martial arts. That's what my whole life was for almost 20 years. That's all I did was just martial arts training and go to school, and that was my life for a long time, up through college. Didn't have a steady job as most college kids. I was going to school full time, and I worked as a bouncer in the evening. So martial arts by day, bouncer at night, and mix in some college classes in there. That was my life for a long time. And
no, wait a second.
Yeah.
Right now, you've got a PhD in philosophy, and I know that's the reality now.
That's the end, yeah.
Were you always intellectually stimulated then? Or?
Well, I was, and I considered myself a relatively rational and reasonable person. That was part of the problem, is that I had never been given any good reasons to think that my faith is true. Just nobody really knew them. I wouldn't say it's anybody's fault, really. The churches didn't ever talk about it. Sunday school, they talked about Bible stories. But why should we think that all this Christianity is true? Why should we think that God exists? No one ever talked about that. And gosh, that's fundamental, isn't it? Yeah. So because I wasn't given any of those reasons, I just, like I said, I consider myself a rational, intellectual type person, a kind of a questioning person. I became an agnostic, someone who's not sure if even God exists or not. And so I thought I was, intellectually justified in doing what I was doing and not paying attention to religion at all.
You bought into a great old philosophy, might equals right.
Yeah, I did. I did, yes.
Might. So
yeah, I did, yeah, for sure.
So what happened then? How'd you get out of that?
So what happened was I went through college like that, and I had some Catholic friends. I had one Catholic friend who I'm very appreciative. He actually gave me a crucifix, a catechism, and a little book by Father John Hardin. Fantastic work, right? Yeah. And I didn't really read it, but I thought about it. I put it on my shelf, and I would glance at it every once in a while, but I didn't take it seriously. But I still think it was kind of there as a seed of sorts, to draw my mind back to these things. But nevertheless, I went through college this way, And then it was time to graduate college, and I put it off as long as possible because I was loving, this lack of responsibility and just being a student, But it was time to graduate, and I thought, gosh, okay, I have to kind of decide what I'm going to do with my life now. And well, that brought up the question, all right, well, what's the purpose of life anyway? So I started getting into these philosophical questions and started thinking about religion again. And because I was kind of embarking on this new chapter in my life, that period of my life, I guess, started provoking these sorts of deep questions, you see. So I started looking into religion again, but Marcus, I still wanted to be intellectually honest. I'm not going to go pick something because it makes me feel good. I have to have good reasons, and I have to think that it's true if I'm going to devote myself to it. So I'll never forget it. This is one of those changing moments in my life. I'm going to check out religion again a little bit, and so I'm just going to go in the Barnes & Noble bookstore, and I'm going to go to the religion section, and you know how spiritually dangerous that can be, right? Because you go in the religion section at Barnes & Noble, right? There's a whole shebang of just
everything imaginable.
I mean, New Age,
collect all.
Oh boy! It's I call it a spiritual minefield.
Yeah.
But this is what happened. I mean, I literally walked up to this shelf of books at Barnes & Noble, and I'll never forget, there's one there with a blue spine, and I just walked right up to this thing, pulled it off the shelf, and it was a handbook of Christian apologetics by Peter Kreeft and Father Ronald DiCelli. Can you believe that? This book changed my life, Marcus. I mean, I just started I thought, what? I've never heard this before. Arguments for the existence of God, historical evidence for the reliability of the Gospels, for the what? Evidence? Faith? No one ever told me this. So I bought this book. I don't know, it was like $10, $13. Man, I took it home. I read this book. I couldn't put it down. I had never been taught these things before, that there can be arguments for God's existence, and that there could be evidence for Christianity, and then an act of faith can be reasonably and responsibly made on that basis. Do you see? It was just not a blind faith approach at all. I was just floored by this, and so I just became just enthralled with this. And I was actually, to be honest, I was a little bit angry. Not at any particular person. It was just that I felt that I had been ripped off somehow in my Christian upbringing. Something didn't get handed on to me that should have been handed on, because these weren't new arguments. These go way back to St. Thomas Aquinas, to St. Augustine, even to pagan philosophers had arguments for the existence of God. And I had never been shown any of this in church or anything. I felt that I was given a short end of the stick, that if I had known this stuff, I never would have left Christianity in the first place.
But as you point out a moment ago, it's not you're blaming anyone, because the truth is they probably didn't have it.
They didn't know either. Yeah, I don't know who dropped the ball, but somewhere along the line, the ball got dropped. So I'm not blaming anyone. It's just I don't want
to jump way ahead, but that's what you're doing now. Is the point of that is that people don't have it, but let's jump back.
That's the point, right?
But the point is that's what the Lord was doing in your life, preparing you for your future, but he was getting you to realize that you hadn't been handed on the foundation for what you needed to keep your faith.
Yeah, and so I had that. Once I learned this, and I started getting into bibliography and learning more and more, finding all these books. I thought, man, this was just this burning desire in me. I got to share this stuff, because I know there are people out there who haven't been given this either, and they wouldn't be non-Christian or unbelievers if they knew this stuff. So a lot of unbelievers, I sympathize with them, because they've been shortchanged too. I was in their shoes as well. Like I said, I was an agnostic, and I'm sure a lot of atheists and agnostics and non-Christians are there because someone has shortchanged them as well. So I wanted to devote my life in the best way that I could to getting this information out to people, studying it myself, and that's when I became really interested in philosophy, which is really important in this enterprise.